Sign up today for a 7-day free trial at alerts.chartguys.com. Checking in on the cryptocurrency space, so we have a bit of a pullback, a pretty sizable pullback in Bitcoin here, and we're looking at a bounce attempting to play out. We'll look at the shorter term time frames in just a second. So as far as the daily time frame goes, anything above 10,761 is a daily high or low. So on this consolidation, we will look for the daily uptrend to remain intact. I'm keeping an eye on the daily exponential support. And the question is, can the bulls form a daily high or low and then see continuation over 13,868? If we're going to see the weekly tightening pattern that I talked about as a potential play, or I should say it's a potential scenario from the video yesterday, if that were going to play out, in my opinion, it would look something like a daily high or low, a fail to break 13,200, and then a loss of the daily uptrend. And then we would look to head back down into the 10,000s and head down towards this support level where we would look for a weekly higher low to form somewhere in the mid to lower $10,000 range. So essentially, anticipating a daily higher low to form, and it's the continuation attempt that's going to tell us what's the most likely scenario with the weekly time frame. So why are we dumping? We had a couple clues. First clue was a bull break from this morning's high. We had a double top at 13,161, 13,161. We broke that level and instantly saw a lot of volume and bears defending that resistance. So that told me, okay, we know bears are defending 13,800 and don't want to see a bull break at this point. So that's number one clue to tell you to be on your toes as a bull, to be cautious of a bear attack, as they just clearly defended a break of resistance and did not allow any follow through. From there, the timing of this big dump in bear volume lines up with the Fed talking or fielding questions and being asked about Libra. And I wasn't listening to specifically what he said, but the timing is there where that is a potential reason things got so ugly. So we had 5-minute oversold bounces the last two times coming from bull moves. The first time we saw a bounce from 12,800. We made it up $400. The second time we saw a bounce 5-minute oversold again. We went from 12,700 to 12,900. Nothing huge, but 1.5+% on that bounce. And then we had the dump. So then we shift and we go, okay, let's look at the 15-minute RSI. The 15-minute RSI got pretty crushed. I was scaling in on this dump because of how extreme the 15-minute RSI was getting. We were heading to 4-hour supports, and the hourly RSI was even approaching oversold. So I was scaling in 12,400 to 12,000. I had orders placed. I got my order at 12,400 and 12,300 filled. I had an average of about 12,350. So then I was just sitting there and watching Coinbase, and a lot of exchanges struggled. And Coinbase was one of them, where canceling orders and moving orders around was really lagging. And you could tell the bots just died on Coinbase because there was a $50 spread between the bid and ask of Bitcoin, and it just sat there for a long time. So whatever happened on Coinbase with this overload, it stopped our bots from working, our liquidity bots. And it was pretty much if the market just said, imagine the market standing there naked and saying, well, this is what is going on without any automated trading or bots. And it's very illiquid and very slow. So we didn't have arbitrage bots. We didn't have liquidity bots. And that told me to slow way down. That being said, there was a big wall on Coinbase at 12,250, and I employed the strategy that I talked about last video, where I market bought into the end of that wall breaking, and then instantly started scaling out. Let's see if we can see it on the chart. Maybe on the 1-minute time frame. We might not be able to see it, but just in terms of a clear wall rejecting the price from 12,250, and it's right here. So this is our wall. I bought it right here on this candlestick, and then instantly we get a $200 move. So instantly I start scaling out from my market buy, because at that point I had a larger position than I wanted, and I wanted to lock in short-term gains of 1% and then have capital again in case we kept dropping to lower lows. I also scaled out some of my other positions. So all in all, I ended up exiting about 60% of what I had bought. No big gains, but gains nonetheless, and that lowers my break-even cost basis. So my break-even on the remainder of the position that I have at this point is about 12,000, just under 12,300. So that's keeping me comfortable because it's not a huge position, and here we are pretty much on break-even. So at this point, I do have orders under 12,000 if 12,000 were to break, and we just came real close but we held it. And the reason I would be looking to enter under 12,000 is because then we would have hourly oversold conditions. And I had orders layered down from 12,000 under 12,000 to 11,600. So it doesn't look like those orders are going to fill, and I may move them because this bounce changes the setup. But my goal is to sell into an hourly bounce. I'm going to look to sell an hourly lower high, and maybe I'll keep some of the longer term swing position, hoping that our daily higher low forms very quickly. But how this bounce shapes up is going to determine that. Ideally, I want to be able to sell in the 12,500 to 12,600 range under the hourly exponential resistance, but we're going to have to see a 15-minute trend change. We're going to have to get over 5-minute exponential resistance, which has been giving the bulls a lot of trouble. We're testing that right now. Pretty much need to see a break of 12,315. And there was also a clear wall of resistance. We could see the bears defending. Every time we got to 12,450, the bears knocked the price down. Look at all these rejections, and that had us drop to lower lows. So I'm remaining cautious. I do have a position that I will look to sell a couple $100 higher. I will essentially try and position myself in a break-even trade, but still having some coins where my stop loss will stop me out at break-even, trying to hold in case the bulls can recover. And we lost the 4-hour uptrend on Bitcoin, but we did not lose the 4-hour uptrend on all exchanges. So there's a little bit of ambiguity here across exchanges. Binance held its 4-hour uptrend, so now we have to be watching for the potential of a head and shoulders pattern, which is entirely possible if we bounce and just form a 4-hour lower high. Bottom line is daily consolidation is underway as far as I'm concerned, and the question is, where can the bulls form a daily higher low? So I'm remaining protective, I'm locking in short-term gains, and going to try and keep a swing position. Ethereum dropped down pretty bearish, but did hold short-term support. 280 held. So that's a baseline of support right now. But Ethereum is not looking good overall, big picture, just in terms of how much we pulled back. The ETH BTC chart is junk. We're dropping to lower lows. Anything under 2707 is a lower high. And currently, this ETH BTC chart is the lowest price that we have seen in a very long time. 2285 is that low. Pretty much a double bottom down here. Just broke below it. Bulls really want to hold here. And we'll see if we get that bear break with some further follow through. But again, just a daily lower high, lower low pattern. I don't care what Ethereum and Litecoin bulls are doing until that pattern breaks. That being said, the percentage gains on some of these bounces, like Litecoin, which we'll look at in just a second, was a bit better than Bitcoin, at least initially. So looking at Ethereum, the hourly time frame, trying to shift momentum as well. We're going to look for an hourly lower high once we get a little bit of bounce follow through, and that will cool off all RSI levels, which is why I personally am going to be looking to scale out a little bit into that move on the hourly, because my reason for being in the trade is RSI levels. And once all our RSI levels have cooled off, I no longer have a reason for being in that trade. Litecoin, big clear bear break. This was a clear short entry. That equilibrium we were watching, and that bear break was 116.56. So any bears that went bearish there very quickly racked up some very big gains. And in pretty much less than 2 hours, we dropped from 116.50. We saw a 12 to 13% drop. So again, entering on that bear signal and then exiting after 5%, 8%, 10%. Very easy gains for the bear on that equilibrium. Whatever direction we would have broken, we would likely have seen some decent follow through. It just so happened to be some very solid follow through for the bears, breaking all 3 support levels on that break. Now the bounce, again, more significant than Bitcoin. The percentage bounce here, way better on Litecoin. So the volatility is there in both directions. 15-minute exponential resistance being tested, but we're just going to look for an hourly lower high here as well. So oversold bounce, perhaps Litecoin is the better play if you are looking for more risk and more reward. LTC, BTC, dropping to lower lows as well. Anything under 10,988 is just a lower high, keeping the bears in control. So again, clear downtrend that we're keeping an eye on. XRP has been giving us red flags the entirety of the last 2 weeks, and now it's following through and showing us why. The weekly uptrend has been lost. You're not going to find many major coins that have lost their weekly uptrend. That's absolutely a red flag. I know there's a ton of drama around XRP in terms of bulls versus bears on social media. I don't care about any of that drama. All I care about is this is a notable bear break on the chart that other names are not seeing. 2852 is the monthly support from here. And now we have a monthly equilibrium to be watching. Low, high, higher low, lower high. And we're coming down to that 28 whatever support. 2852, and I would expect the bulls to be able to hold that at least initially, and we may see this monthly chart tighten up into the fall, which would be great because when it breaks, we would expect some solid follow through. BNB came down and held support of 30.56. We broke it by a couple pennies, but that's close enough for a double bottom. Again, we're cautious on BNB, this weekly time frame, still keeping the uptrend, but if this weekly uptrend is lost, monthly consolidation is coming, and we have to be cautious of that. So at this point, we have a double bottom and almost a double top. So 34.38 to 30.50 is essentially the range that we're in. And we've been within this range for the last 10 days, and we may be within it for another 3 or 4 days, depending on how this bounce goes. So those are the two most important levels for me on Binance. Link. Bear break here as well. Support is down at 2852, and that level broke clearly. So we zoom out to the weekly. We lost the daily uptrend, so now weekly consolidation is underway. Need a 4-hour trend change at a bare minimum to be looking for a weekly higher low to try and form. If you want to be more cautious, you're waiting for a daily trend change for a weekly higher low to form. But on the 4-hour time frame, anything under 332 is just a lower high. So bulls trying to bounce here, but overall a slow fade from short-term bull action. The bull break took about 5 days, and we've just been tightening up and now slowly fading ever since we reached that temporary top. So we'll see if this Bitcoin bounce can get any follow through. The 15-minute exponential resistance levels are next on deck. Then we'll zoom out and look at the hourly exponential resistances, playing that good old-fashioned zoom-out game that we know so well from the last however many years of trading cryptocurrency you've been doing it, or however many years you've been watching these videos. And we'll see if we can shift some momentum. Again, at this point, because of the hourly RSI not cooling off, I will still be interested if 12,000 breaks. But if the RSI cools off with a little weak bounce, and then we drop to lower lows, that's going to keep me more cautious. So again, bigger picture, it all depends on what time frame you're trading on. Are you looking for these little day trade scalps on Litecoin? Are you only concerned with the 4-hour uptrends? Are you looking at the daily uptrend and only concerned with that? Because if the daily uptrend remains on Bitcoin, we're going to break 13,800. It's just a question of when. It might be a week or so, but we would have to lose the daily uptrend in order to not be looking to break 13,800 in July, pretty much, is what it's going to boil down to. So we'll see if the bears have any significant follow through, and we'll check back in tomorrow. Do good things out there. Hope you're well. See you soon.
So today we're going to talk about lawns. We've got some magnolias blooming, and I haven't put chemicals in this for a while, so there's algae growing in it, but going to throw some snails and things in there. But I want to talk about lawns, this space right here. Eventually I'm going to, over the winter, I plan on putting a big tarp down, cutting a circle in it, putting weight on it, and killing the grass to plant a bunch of perennial flowers and potentially some blueberries and things here. But this is probably the longest that this lawn has gotten in years, because the person who used to live here was a career landscaper, and just watching the neighbors, everybody mows their lawn once a week, keeps it nice and golf course small. And if you look at the lawn, how many flowers, I don't know if you can see it, but the amount of flowers that are currently blooming because I've let it grow multiple weeks, there's literally thousands of flowers here. So when you have thousands of little flowers, and again, I doubt you can see it, but just looking straight across, there's a bunch of insects that are using the flowers for pollination. So you let your lawn grow, you get a bunch of flowers, whether it's weeds or whatever, and then you get a bunch of insects, and then there's a bunch of birds to eat the insects, and it's just this whole ecosystem that starts to develop that you don't have if you mow your lawn every single week. It's a little bit of a sanctuary. The squirrels and the chipmunks can use it for cover, and it's just a different world than if you would just cut it. And just going around here, this path, all these little weeds, eventually when they get big enough, I'll pull them. But I came out here the other day and I was gonna start pulling some weeds, and I looked at this one weed and I thought, look how many bugs are eating these leaves. Why do I care if there's a little green thing there? If it flowers and spreads its seed, then yeah, maybe I'll get it before it reaches that point. But there are things that are eating it, and I could care less if there's a little bit of green in the mulch here. So that's just a different perspective that you don't get taught. And it was interesting because, you know, I grew up with my dad who liked his lawn like many people's dads did. And the other day we got that wood slab pile delivered, and the truck drove onto the grass, and it's a part of the grass that we're going to be covering anyway. And I had this instinctual reaction, oh, not on the grass. And I had to catch myself and say, but that doesn't matter at all. And it was just really interesting to observe that that was my reaction that has been burned into my being from growing up. So if you can, let things grow, provide sanctuary for plants and animals, and there's no reason that we need a flat, picture-perfect lawn. See you next time.